Welcome, Jessica. You're ready.
Greetings, everyone. Hello from Canberra. My name is Jessica Castun, and I'm your host today. Thanks for everyone who's tuning into our live call. On the call with me today, we have Beatrice. Beatrice, who's calling in from Rio in Brazil, where the time is where it's 10 p.m. Hi, Beatrice.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Welcome. And we also have on the call with us Christian, the founder of Peacemaker 360 himself, who's joining us in on the call.
Thank you so much for having me again, Jessica, and wonderful day to have you with this call, Beatrice. We're very happy to have you.
Of course, it's great to have you live and not just doing the text, so glad to have you on. Also, we have joining us on the call today, Ananda, who's calling in from Bangladesh. Christian, can we see Ananda?
Ananda is still trying to join us, but hopefully he'll be here within a few minutes. I'll keep you posted on his process.
Okay, great. And I can see so far we have approximately 8 people live on the call, so welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us in, and I hope this topic today about emerging technologies and violent extremism would be of interest to you. So as usual, please feel free to make any comments or any questions that you have directed towards our panelists, and please comment, and then Christian will pick it up and I'll pick it up, and we'll save enough time for this call to go through them. Now, before we go into our hot topic, into our substantive theme, let's head over for a more formal introduction to our panelists to really hear about their engagement in the project peacebuilding space, or any engagement particularly about countering violent extremism. So let's head over to Beatrice first.
Okay, so I am a journalist. I have been working as a journalist for more than 10 years. And in 2017, I set up a website to help increase the visibility of institutions that were working to prevent radicalization. The website was called Words Heal the World. And then I decided to engage students with that topic. So I established partnerships with universities, and I started empowering these students to challenge hate. So that's how Words Heal became a project. And then recently, last year, it was registered as an NGO in the UK. So right now we have students in the UK, Brazil, and Latin America developing strategies to tackle different types of extremism, such as anti-Semitism, jihadism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism, homophobia, and misogyny. So that's Words Heal the World.
Great. Thank you, Beatrice, for introducing your amazing work. And the organization's name, Works Heal the World. And it's great to hear that it has been registered as a national, as an international NGO. And we look forward to hear more your insights and expertise on the subject matter. Christian, I know a lot of our viewers know who you are and are very familiar with your work, but please, can you go ahead and introduce for our callers who are not familiar with what Peacemaker 360 is and your work?
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for the kind introduction. It's good to be here again with Beatrice and to learn about the work that you've been doing. I'm super excited about this call. So my name is Christian Chito Chirigiri. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I have been working in the youth and peace building field for the past 8 years, and my work mainly focuses on youth and communication. So I realized that for a long time that the field is expanding and is growing, but we need to create bridges, to build bridges with peace builders around the world. And my passion for communication, just like you, Beatrice, really has moved me into this field to trying to understand what are some of the gaps that we can fill, and how, as journalists and communication specialists, we can play a role in connecting and healing the world. So I'm currently based here in Colombia. Colombia, where I've been working, supporting several youth organizations, and even doing some research on the role of the UN in implementing the peace process in Colombia. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell about me. Peacemaker 360 is a platform that was started in 2016, and it's still really just another bridge to help all of our voices to reach to different corners of the world and to inspire each other.
Thank you for that introduction, Christian, and for sharing your inspiration with the rest of the world, and also for making this platform available for us to have these discussions. Now, can we move on to Ananda, or has he not joined us yet?
Ananda is still trying to join us, but hopefully he will be able to join us a little bit later. He's having a difficulty with his browser, so I'm working with him on that.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll skip his introduction for now. And I'll just start by outlining the scene behind our hot topic for our viewers. Basically, emerging technologies and violent extremism is an increasing area of focus among policymakers, researchers, and program planners within the peace-building context. The increasing role social media platforms have played in the recent years has created challenges in fostering fast and innovative links to organized violent extremism groups across otherwise distant geographic communities. It is argued that social media has become a catalyst in the transformation of how insurgencies are operating and innovating by virtual communities, like the one that we're using, for instance, on Facebook or Instagram. These platforms are basically seen to enable insurgent groups to market their campaigns online by appealing to people's emotions and collective identity through sometimes branding a utopian future, which has sometimes led people to being recruited actively into those groups, mainly because people are being drawn to those groups because they feel emotionally connected because of that collective identity appeal. Now, we all know that violent extremism does not occur in a vacuum. And I'm sure we can appreciate that besides individual factors that may motivate some people to turn to violent extremism, structural factors within a society play a main role in pushing people who are frustrated or marginalized to become violent or partake in such insurgent groups. Whether those factors may be due to government repression, abuses of human rights, discrimination, group marginalization, unemployment, underemployment, propaganda, the media's coverage.
We're having Ananda. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Oh, did he join us? Okay, great.
Yes. Okay.
Ananda, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Ananda. Welcome on the call.
Okay, welcome. Thank you I'm so sorry for my waiting.
No problem. We
Hello,
always are happy to have you.
Welcome. Welcome to our call, Ananda. I was just providing an outline to our viewers about the hot topic for today. So I'll just segue a little bit, pause on that, so we can go to you and have a little bit of an introduction. If you can introduce yourself to our viewers, basically let us know what type of work you're engaged in at the moment in peace building or in countering violent extremism.
Okay. I'm Anando Rajbongshi. You can call me Rajbongshi or Anando, anything. Okay. I'm from Bangladesh, and I completed my graduation from Khulna University in Development Studies. After completing my bachelor level, then I got an offer from TFB, Teach for Bangladesh, is a organization who's working with underprivileged child for better education. Then that time I got a participative competition. This competition like a digital Kisuri challenge. That means first social hackathon in Bangladesh, and our team idea was how to protect fake news, and can make a better society. in 2017, then we generate the idea and own the idea from this competition. And this competition was organized by UNDP Bangladesh, as well as ICT division is the government part, and Facebook and Microsoft also the jointly supported this event. Then in 2018, we start a creative platform. Like this, our platform name is Fake News Checker. In Bangladesh, there are some previous bad experience about the fake news sector. Some minority attack, then some propaganda is too much high, and they create the social harmony and social cohesion. That's why we work in this sector. And this one was my kickstart in peace building sector. Then I then 1 year back, like 2018, whole year I have experienced some like experience in digital media, how can role to protect or to create the peace building society. That and we already developed a one image detector software, web apps actually. Then you can easily detect any images in our portal. But this portal is like not user friendly for all over the country's people, because this one is like Bengali people targeted. So we can easily shift our website in English or other language, so that could be helpful all over the people. And already we another web apps developed. This apps is like keyword searching, like Google searching, but this one is automation. Like Anando killed anyone, just you kill Anando and killed, then the web portal, this our web app will show the all over the things, Anando related and Q related anything. And to categorize, actually we already created database where this one is authentic news source, this one is not authentic, this one is fabricated. This is our actually work done. But already our website is here, and our main target is to empower young people as well as the religious leader. How can check the fake news is, how can respect each other or interfaith respect. That is our main idea, and that's why I working in peace building sector, and my master thesis is related with that things, all about me.
Thank you for that introduction, Ananda. Am I saying your name? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Ananda?
Yes, Ananda.
Okay, great. Now, what was the name of your organization, the platform? I didn't catch that.
Fake news checker.
Fake news checker.
Fake news checker. Dot
Sorry, can you
online.
repeat?
It's fake news checker.
News checker. Okay, great. So we'll delve into that fake news checker in a bit. So thank you for sharing. While you joined us, I was in the process of just basically outlining to our audience the backdrop to our hot topic. So I'll just continue with that, and then we'll move forward with the questions. Okay, so I know we're cutting through, but at the same time, so like I was discussing before, violent extremism does not happen in a vacuum. There are several reasons for that, as we just outlined. Some of them could be personal motivations, and some could be external factor motivations. And out of those external factors, we outlined how government repression, abuses of human rights, and the media and matters of such can really affect a person's perspective or how they become radicalized. Okay, we also, and the literature also shows that violent extremism behavior may stem from a person's search for identity and a sense of belonging, so that need to belong, which has been recognized especially among diaspora communities and immigrants, or persons who have been nationalized in a particular country, but they don't feel that they belong in the host country. So I hope that introduction's enough, and Ananda, I'm hoping you got the chance to read the template that we already shared.
Yeah.
Great. So let's head over to our panelists to explore their views on the subject matter. In your experiences, what have you come across as justifications for violent extremism within your respective communities? Let's head over to Beatrice first. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, that's fine. So basically, when we study the radicalization process is usually considered to have 4 phases. So the first phase is the individual becomes to be isolated. The second phase, the isolation is complete. The third phase, he starts to share these radical views and to spread the word when it comes to his radical perspectives. And on the third phase, no, on the fourth phase, he takes violent action. So these are based. It's a very simplified description of the radicalization process, but it's very used for by policymakers, for example. And it's interesting that it starts when the individual has already signs of radicalization. And when it comes to the signs, it's very hard to identify those signs of radicalization and what are the drivers that pull an individual to engage with such ideologies. So the work that I've been developing with students focus on the previous stage of it, when students are not that engaged with these kind of ideologies. And during this work with them, I managed to identify some vulnerabilities, both in the UK and in Brazil, mainly in the UK. And the vulnerabilities were basically related to the sense of belonging. I work with international students, and these students, they really feel, some of them, they really feel that they do not belong to that country, that they do not, they are not a part of a cause, for example. And sometimes they it affects their self-esteem, so they feel that they don't have any perspective. I had issues like this with one of my students. Um, she was really depressed because she felt that she were not able to achieve her goals, to achieve her dreams. And during her work with Words Heal, she managed to find herself. She managed to enhance her self-esteem. So yes, it was, I can say that it was kind of life-changing for her because she gave me this testimony. So when it comes to radicalization drivers, there are many, and we obviously cannot simplify it because we need to understand it from the local perspective. Because, for instance, in underdeveloped countries, one of the drivers is socioeconomic. For instance, extremist groups, they offer salaries, they offer money to young people to engage with them. It is very common in Africa and is also common in Latin America, but not with the jihadist groups as we know. It's common with gangs. So yes, so the drivers are many, but from my experience, what I've noticed was the sense of belonging. The sense of belonging really plays a role. And I think it's very important to focus on sense of belonging because many students, they lack perspective, they don't believe in themselves. And whenever they have the chance to engage with somebody who promises heaven, promises many things to them, it's very easy for them to feel part of that narrative. And that's why it's very important to develop narratives that are able to embrace students with the struggle against extremism.
I totally agree actually with the points that Beatrice has shared on really trying to understand students' needs and trying to understand the kind of challenges they face. One of which you've mentioned, Beatrice, is the idea of belonging and making them feel like they're part of some kind of community that makes them feel valuable. Another point I'd like to add, and this is probably true, and I agree with Beatrice, we cannot really simplify the factors behind violent extremism. A story that I came across as a peacemaker, running Peacemaker 360 from Morocco 2 years ago, is from an activist who is working also on promoting or countering violent extremism in public schools in Morocco. And this is what he said. He told us that for so many young people in Morocco, what attracts them to violent extremist ideologies has to do so much with the idea of going to explore the world. So there's so much curiosity among so many young people. And as we already know, this is a big trend happening, especially in most sub-Saharan countries, where due to economic conditions, young people feel the need to leave their countries and to go and explore what other possibilities are out there. And to so many of them, because they are exploring an uncharted territory in unknown land, they find themselves with the wrong groups, so they find themselves drawn to these groups that basically sustain their idea of belonging. And I think this is very important to mention, that in a world where there are limited opportunities for young people, violent extremist ideas tend to have a leverage on that, because they feed on that vulnerability of youth. A final point I'd like to share is that in at least the case of the Congo, I would say that violent extremism, although it's not very rampant, and I agree here with Beatrice, we see also that for so many times, or what really becomes problematic is the groups that foster or that propagate the messages. And in many cases, it's been just upright violence. So blatant violence towards certain communities, violence that is targeted towards certain minorities. And these are often instigated by politicians who project certain minority groups as the other that is not fitting, that is not right in the community. So this is another context that I feel like has to also be deconstructed, as to it's not really always very huge jihadist groups like we say, but often it's also just sectarian political groups that tend to have violent leaning and that propagate this kind of extremist ideologies.
Thank you, Christian. Over to you, Ananda.
Okay. Radicalization and extra violent extremism. Actually, last few days, I was working these topics as a completed or dissertation my masters. So when I start to read some document related with the radicalization process in Bangladesh, as well as the violent extremism, these are connected in my perspective, and based on the literature review perspective. And my working area is exploring the radicalization processes in southwest Bangladesh, causes of severity and the extent. This one is my target. This one is my title for a master dissertation. Then I found a five-stage extremism in Bangladesh. The first stage was started 1980s. This one is like Bangladeshi, some people, they are motivated and to join the Afghan Soviet war. Then they were back in 90s. Then they are making like the organization. Organization, his name was JMB, Jamatul Mujahid Bangladesh. Then they can start some violence, extremism in 2001 to 2005, and these people are like establishing their jihadist thinking, and to make a Sharia law in Bangladesh, and they can blast 60, 63 districts in 2004, among 64 districts. This one is huge, only one district left. And this one is the history of Bangladeshi radicalization or violent extremism. Then some years this one was stopped, but there are no big issues. Then in 2014, the big youth movement was held against the against the war criminal. Right. This one is like one organization in Jamaat Islam. There are some prominent leader was engaging themselves in 2000 in 1971 war, the liberation war. So the time the present government was trying to find out, yes, who was in guilty for that war, because in liberation war is our heartbeat. So that time some youth people was a movement in, like, the name was Gono Jagoron Mons, and that time the another Islamic majority organization was formed. This name is uh, Hefazat Islam, and as well as some radicalized group name is Ansarullah Bangla Team, and Hizbut Tahrir, and others organization, and the same like their organization are working the time, and they can promote the propaganda in online media, and their target is to youth, and who are motivated or sensitive in religious. Then they can like collected the people, and in 2014 14 later they published a list where the some secular blogger, then activist, and the social worker, they are published a report. Then they one by one killed, and some blogger in five or six blogger was hacked by the Ansarullah Bangla team. After that, killing that, Ansarullah Bangla team was the ISIS. They can they was said that, yes, this one is our Bangladeshi part, Bangladeshi corporate or Bangladeshi recruiter was working very well. They was published. ISIS was published, and in 2016 July, 26 July, and one major attack was held in Holy Artisan Bakery. This one is diplomatic area of Bangladesh, and 24 people are 29 people are hacked by this attack, and this one was uh, covered by youth radicalized people, and most of the people are youth and well educated. Some people are educated from other country, but both are Bangladeshis. And this one is like concerning issues for Bangladesh. And before that attack in Ramadan time, uh, some areas, some these youth people are like had the some religious leader and businessman or others people. So this radicalization in 2016 was a huge impact in Bangladesh, and main concerning issue was some youth motivated people. These people are like well educated, their background is too high, there are no like any poverty or any মানে depression. So Bangladesh government was thinking that thing, and that time the zero tolerance project was learned by was taken by the government, and in present now this radicalization process is now stopping. Like Ansarullah Bangla team is stopped, Hizbut Tahrir is banned by the government. But in my point of view, in Bangladesh, yes, the radicalization shape was changing from based
Great.
on my research data. Sorry.
Thank you for. I'll just interject there. Ananda, thank you for sharing your perspective. So just to summarize, the panelists are basically saying that a lot of the drivers of radicalization, and notice we have focused here on youth specifically, are the vulnerabilities which can manifest in a sense of belonging or sometimes mental health conditions, such as that mentioned by Beatrice, which was depression. There's also that curiosity to explore the world that Christian mentioned, and also political narratives, which can be extremist within the host country. And also, as mentioned by Ananda, extremist religious ideologies can be really main driving factors. Now, I just want to understand from you, and I think, Ananda, you touched base on that, but what are the social media platforms that these insurgent groups are using to appeal to the youth? And I know we are focused on youth, but can any of you give the viewers insight about the nature of those technologies?
Okay. In Bangladesh, based on some literature review or my working experience, some pages, some social media pages. In Bangladesh, the internet users are radically increases in last 4 years. Is like double. If you got the statistics from internetlive.com, then you can got the Bangladeshi people internet users. So the radicalized group are thinking their way of promotion is changing. They are creating a Facebook pages and or YouTube, and they can easily promote their like propaganda or misinterpretation in Islamic verses on other things, as well as the Hindu radicalized people are also doing that. They have some group and they can use some fake news or fake images. Yes, this one is happened in India. Why you people are silent? Or this one is happening in India, in other countries. So why you are stopping? And the more important thing is that this social media platform are easily accessed to cover up all the people, and people of Bangladesh and some people, they don't have any idea about fake news or fake images or anything. They can easily like believe this
Sorry to
post
interject,
they share.
Ananda. Sorry to interject. I'm just cautious of the time, just to give an opportunity for other panelists to speak. Besides Facebook and YouTube, which Ananda mentioned, Beatrice and Christian, do you have any other platforms that you've come across?
Beatrice, we actually cannot hear you well right now. So if you could check maybe connecting your audio, can you check again?
Beatrice, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Can't hear you.
We can't hear you, but yeah, maybe try to check if there's a problem with the connection of your sound system there.
Okay, let's go over to you, Christian.
Well, meantime, one thing I would also like to add is that some of these online networks through which violent extremist groups recruit or try to lure young, vulnerable youth are often not very open. And these are networks that are shared through small groups, and youth spread them among their friends, and these groups sometimes are not very common. But I would like also to say that there's been a research that proves how Twitter and Instagram are recruiting platforms, have been recruiting platforms for so many violent extremist groups. And another point that I would like to add to this conversation around recruitment and platform that I use, would like also to say that so many of these platforms are also used by politicians who are trying to basically attract the attention of young people to engage in some kind of violence. So I think Twitter and Instagram are definitely two of the other tools that I'd like to mention there. Beatrice, can you hear us?
Beatrice, can you hear us?
Looks like okay.
Okay.
One suggestion would be to try to disconnect. I will try to connect again. Maybe close the browser and then try to reconnect again. But no problem, we can continue the conversation.
All right, so we'll move on. Just for our viewers, to summarize again, the platforms that have been identified that are being used to radicalize or engage the youth are Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So I know we've been focused on the youth, but there's a great body of work that argues there has been an overemphasis and a preconceived view that when we think of extremist terrorist groups, we look to young men and young people first, rather than looking at what draws women to actively choose to partake in violent extremist group and become radicalized. Beatrice, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Great, now we can hear you. Okay. Welcome back.
Thank
So
God.
you joined in on the part where I'll just summarize briefly. So usually there's a body of work that's basically saying a lot of the focus on extremist terrorist group and radicalization has been on young people and young men. We automatically go to them rather than looking at women and why do women actively choose to partake in violent extremism group. So how does that inference sit with you in light of perceiving women as a threat within the context of your countries?
Okay, so before answering this one, can I just add two things because they are very important to the last topic. So the first one is I think we are very focused now in this talk on jihadism, and we are overlooking the far-right groups, and this cannot be overlooked. So far-right groups have also been using different platforms to spread their narratives. They are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the deep web, they are everywhere, and they have just started copying the same techniques used by jihadist groups like Daesh and Al-Qaeda. They are producing sophisticated videos. And besides that, there is another thing that I think is important to mention, is the fact that we have nowadays with the internet, individuals presenting themselves as experts to spread radical ideologies. And this is very, very serious. And we have far-right individuals doing this thing. And they are spreading their narratives freely on YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. So this is something important to mention here. And another thing related to women. There is a misconception that women just engage with extremist groups because they are looking for a husband, they are looking for a partner. It's far much more than that. There are different factors that drive them to engage with radical ideologies. And another thing that is important mentioning here is that they do not play a secondary role in these groups. They play a very important role. They're responsible, many of them, they're responsible for recruitment, for engaging with other people and bring these other people to the groups. So the fact that we have this stereotype that women are the fragile sex, that women are just for looking for a husband and whatever, make many authorities and policemen just overlook the role played by these women because they are not on the spotlight. They look for men. So they are freely recruiting people on the internet, on universities, on public space, and whatever. So I think this is a side effect of the kind of society where we live into. It is a side effect of patriarchy, of our patriarchal society, and it's something that we cannot overlook. Both sides are important. Both men and women are important because we are dealing with information, and both of them have been capable of producing very persuasive narratives to engage not only young people but other people with these ideologies.
I totally resonate with the point that Beatrice has just shared, and I think not just within the sector of addressing violent extremism that we see women being seen as the weak sex or the not so much engaged, but we see it often as well in the peace building field as a whole. When you're talking about addressing, for example, the past atrocities of a conflict, often we tend to look at what men have done, and often we lose the sight of the role that women also play within conflict contexts. And I think one of the key points that I also like to add here is that too often, because women are often perceived as not aggressive or not as a threat, they are often actually the target of most violent extremist groups. And this is actually has been seen in the recruitment strategies, for example, in Nigeria with Boko Haram, where they had gone to recruit many women who are coming from very vulnerable communities, because these are often easily unrecognized and can easily stage, let's say, terrorist attacks, can easily stage some of these egregious acts that may not be caught by the radar of, let's say, police authorities. And I think this is definitely a point to address. But one of the issues that I think also is very important to see is that just like it is for boys or for men, women as well who have gone through extreme oppression, who have seen loss of opportunity, who have seen their rights plundered, will be entitled or will be drawn to some kind of identity group that enhances their sense of self. And this has been proven, at least with the ISIS, where women who join ISIS have also come to share this idea of belonging and trying to defend their land. So that's just a point I want to share.
Thanks, Christian. Over to you. Ananda, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Did you have anything you'd like to share on the perception of women in joining violent extremism?
Yes.
Briefly?
In Bangladesh, the first four phases of radicalization, there are no men are directly connected with the radicalization process. But in after 2016 or 2016, there are some women are joining the radicalized group Ansarullah Bangla team. They are like they're not very suspectable, and they can easily connect with the targeted people. So some suicidal bomb squatter by the lead by the women, and women are like in Bangladesh there are like low or not powerful. This one is like recognized. That's why these people this the time in Bangladesh. So women are recruited. In jihadist movement or ideological any things in last wave of radicalization. That's it.
Thank you. Now, before we head on to the component of what are the measures to combat violent extremism, I think our viewers have a few questions to our panelists. So there's one directed to Beatrice. Beatrice, can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so from Muslim youth peace builders across the world, the question to you is, words heal the world. To what extent has been involved in addressing armed violence in schools, like what is rampantly happening in the US?
So I didn't quite understand this question, but I'm going to give both answers in case any of these is appropriate. First one, thank you so much for following us. I really appreciate the work you have been developing. And do you want to know if Words Heal is involved in any kind of activity to address this problem in the US? Because if this is the question, we are not yet, because we are not active in the US right now, but we are going to be soon. However, our focus right now is on universities, and eventually we facilitate workshops in high schools as well. So yes, we may address this issue in the US soon. Another kind of answer to this question is, I don't know to what extent has been, if you want to know if there is any explanation to this kind of shootings in schools related to extremism, well, from my point of view, this is another side effect of the society where we live nowadays, the post-truth era society ruled by emotion, society ruled by information. And another important point to mention here is the way these boys and girls have been raised and the way that they engage with their peers in schools. Because many students, mainly students who do these kind of things, they they lack sense of belonging, they lack perspective. So we are dealing with kind of almost the same drivers that lead to extremism and to radicalization. We are dealing here with individuals who lack perspective, who lack sense of belonging, who don't have an open line of communication with their families, who feel alone. So this is something that we must address, and that's why I believe communication should become a security issue nowadays. Information does not belong only to communicate, to the communication field, not at all. And that's why we should bring this issue to journalism courses, and also discuss it within educational sectors. What is the message that we are conveying? What is the quality of messages that students are assessing nowadays? Because messages are powerful, words are powerful. So that is something that we must address. And these shootings, they are copied by other students. And this leads to another thing, how TV companies are covering this kind of events. Because TV companies, they constantly reproduce the shootings, and they show all the time. I totally understand that TV works with images, but there is a limit, and we need to discuss this limit.
Thank you, Beatrice, for sharing those very persuasive points there. Do you think that the term combating violent extremism is a toxic term when it's identified in foreign policy and legislation? And I will, I'm not sure if we can hear. Beatrice, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think there was a lag in communication because I could still see you speaking. Okay. Did you hear my question, or should I repeat it?
No, I heard it. If the term combat violent extremism is toxic?
When it's identified in foreign policy and legislation. So is that the way to approach it? Is that targeting the root cause of the problem?
Honestly, I really don't understand this question. I will ask you the same question. Why do you think the term is toxic? What is the problem with the terminology? Because I don't see a problem in the terminology. I see there is a problem nowadays with the lack of a universal definition for extremism. So people usually associate extremism with radical political ideologies. So they put jihadism or they put far right. And from my perspective, I agree with an American philosopher and other scholars who associate extremism with a more identitarian character. So extremism is any belief that puts an in group in opposition to an out group and demands hostile action towards that out group. So from this perspective, we can understand racism, homophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, all of these types of extremism. And I think these types of extremism, they are a huge problem nowadays. So I honestly don't think combating violent extremism is a problematic terminology.
I would probably maybe just try to interject there on agreeing as well with Beatrice, because yes, violent extremism or different forms of extremism, like you've mentioned, like xenophobia, are real problems to the society. And these issues need to be talked just like they are cancerous. So when you're talking about addressing something so endemic, you need to have sometimes a robust approach, even in terms of policy formulation, to address these issues. But I also think it's also important to understand that to so many young people around the world, policy formulation, and this is not just related to violent extremism, but we've seen recently, if you've read the Missing Peace report, where they're talking about the implementation of the peace of the resolution 2250 in different countries around the world. What we are seeing is a trend among policymakers to implement very stringent policies because they see youth as a threat. Now, when you're talking about approaching violent extremism, but you know that many of the youth, of the people who are concerned about this trend are youth. I think it's also important to understand that often the approaches or the formulation of policies tend to be very stringent, tend to not understand the underlying causes that lead to violent extremism. For example, poverty, unemployment, lack of access to education. And when you look at countries like the United States, the way they've approached, for example, groups like say ISIS has been just war and violence and nothing else but war. But what about trying to work through some of the endemic issues that affect youth in so many countries that lead them to approaching these groups? I think this is where I see the importance to understand the power of policy formulation, and also understanding that at the end of the day, I believe that any policy that is coming against the youth, even if it's trying to address the deep issues of violence extremism, is not the right policy.
Yes, from the policy's perspective, I think that when it comes to extremism, they tend to completely overlook the youth. They focus on monitoring schemes. They focus on increasing the number of weapons and monitoring targets some communities, and that's their focus. And when it comes to education, there is an absence. And as you said, it is endemic. If we don't address education, and if we don't address other social economic factors that are connected, it will be very, very difficult to solve this problem.
Okay, in my point of view, in Bangladesh, there are not like in jihadist radicalization is now the condition of jihadist radicalization is totally is well. But in another part is radicalization process in like a political radicalization or power exercising is high, and from the field data, some youth people they are very much concerned about that things. Yes, politics is one of the reasons to become the people radicalized. So this one is like a newly emerged factor, driving factors of radicalization, and the government of Bangladesh, they are like is quite good to introduce new method. How can easily cover up the radicalized people, and already they introduced one law, ICT law, where you can easily they can easily identify and under the law, and easily like any action became any fake newses or any propaganda or any misinterpretation or anything of Islams or others like others religions.
Thank you, Ananda, for sharing your perspective, and to our panelists for sharing your views on this topic. One of the reasons what pushed me to ask this question is when I was working here in legislation in Australia, there's this focus on writing legislation to counter what's happening in the other side of the world, with that concept, the idea that by creating the legislation, that's going to tackle the problem. So my understanding from the rest of the world and being there is there are the root cause of problems that need to be addressed, and usually that's through education, social cohesion, and like directly doing things on the field to address those vulnerabilities rather than just creating legislation. So that's where this question came from. Now we are drawing towards the end of our conversation, and we still have 5 minutes remaining. Christian, do we have any other questions from our viewers?
Yes, we do have two questions for Ananda. The first one was asked by Muhammad Hassan, who is joining us. Thank you so much for your engagement, Muhammad. And Muhammad asked, how can fake news checker decrease extremism and bring peace? That's your question, Ananda.
Okay. Yes, the question is like our platform to decrease the violent extremism in a peace building sectors. Okay, is it possible for Bangladesh or any countries yes, after before we start the fake news checker, then we can experience the one fake news can create create the like conflict situation in Bangladesh. Some minorities attack or anything in happen in Bangladesh based on the fake news or fake images. If the people are not empowered or not know about the how to check the fake news or fake images, they can joining with violence, and this violence create the discomfort situation in the society. So fake news checker is the platform where we are not providing the real sources of newses, but we as well as how to check the fake newses and how to empower the people we can think also. And our another thinking is to promote the peace campaign all over the countries, and our next target is 2000 2020, and we cover up 1000 school to promote how to check the fake newses from internet, and
Mm.
as well as the interfaith respect how to increase. This is one
Very,
our target.
very good. Thank you so much for that quick answer, Ananda. We really appreciate it. There's also another question from Bukavu Youth Action Center to Beatrice, and this is actually asking, the far right movement in Brazil is spreading negative extremist ideologies. What do you think should be done to address this, and how is your organization involved?
Okay, yes, this is a fact. And I think education is the answer. We need to educate people to talk about these extremist ideologies, to talk about racism, to talk about misogyny, to talk about homophobia, which is a huge problem here in my country. And also, besides talking about this, addressing these issues, especially with young people, not only online, but also offline, I think it's also important to shed light on hate crimes, on crimes motivated by hate. And that's why my organization, Words Heal the World, is producing its first report, which is the Hate Map of Brazil. Because in Brazil, we don't have any kind of monitoring scheme when it comes to hate crimes. So how can we tackle a problem if we don't know, we don't have any idea of where the problem is located, what is the region that has the highest rates? So that's why we are producing this map, and we intend to shed light on this problem and raise awareness on the importance of challenging hate, challenging all types of hate, including racism and misogyny, which are terrible here in my country.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you,
Yes,
Beatrice,
Jessica, go
for
for it.
responding to those questions, and thank you for our viewers for asking. It looks like we're drawing to 12 o'clock at Sydney time, and we're going to have to close our call for today. Is there any final remarks either of you would like to make before we end this call?
I would like to thank you so much for this opportunity. It was so nice, so engaging that it was so quickly. I can't believe it's already gone. So thank you so much for this opportunity and for our viewers, for our followers. If you want to know more about Words Heal the World, please follow our Facebook page. We are also on Twitter and Instagram. And if you have any ideas to tackle extremism, please bring it to us, because we are open to everyone who is willing to challenge hate.
Great. Thank you, Beatrice. Christian, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thanks to Beatrice and to Ananda for accepting the invitation to join this call, and for the wonderful work that you both are doing. Ananda with Fake News Checker, and with Beatrice with Words Heal the World. We really are glad, and we are happy of the work that you're doing, and we really count on working with you in the future. So please, let's continue the conversation.
Thanks, Christian. Ananda, anything else?
First of all, thank you, Christiana, for giving the wonderful opportunity for me and and to share my experience in from Bangladesh, and as well as express my work, previous experience or learning. So this one is the huge impact for myself, as well as some people are curious about the fake news, how fake news is working or not in this building sector. So this one is is good for me. and I can share and I can learn from all of people how can change my thinking and work with peace and how and protect the violent extremism. That one is my learning part of this session. So I'm so grateful all of you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thank you for our audience for joining us in today. And we look forward to our next live hot topic. If you have any recommendations for a specific subject matter that you are interested in, please DM Peacemaker360 on Facebook or on Instagram. And thank you all for your time today and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.